to cover whatever we can in these next three sessions that we're going to have. And we'll go over a few different things, not just actual building, but other things that I feel that are very important with the whole concept of learning the skill of carpentry. Those of you that can join me as I kneel for prayer. Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to have this camp meeting, to learn, to grow, to share. Lord, bless us, please, as we continue with this class, as you have blessed us with every other class that we've had so far. It is in the name of your Son, Jesus, that we ask this. Amen. So very briefly, my name is Sam Lopez, and we did not plan on starting a ministry, but the Lord led us to starting a ministry. Just a few years back, we decided to begin some Spanish camp meetings, kind of like this that you're having here. And with the support and the recommendations of other brethren that were doing the same thing, it came together. And actually, Brother George had a lot to do with getting us going and taking up a name and getting a Facebook account and things like that. But it's been a blessing. I myself am a carpenter by trade. I did a 4-year apprenticeship, started in 1986. And ever since, I've been a carpenter. I've done every kind of carpentry there is in terms of not cabinet making, but build homes for many years, and then did interior commercial work, did high-rise construction in Chicago for 10 years. And everything that I did not consecrate to the Lord, the enemy used against me. But now that I have consecrated unto the Lord, I use it for a blessing, Lord, to bless I use it from the Lord to bless others now. And that's why we're here now. I usually I'm not a very good speaker. I'm not, one that ever thought I would be up here. Like my brother was just saying, never thought I would be doing this, but now it's a privilege to share whatever we have, whether it's time, skill, knowledge, whatever God has given us. That's what we do now as a ministry above all. It's to help our brethren. Some of the things that we'll be covering is, I left a notebook in the back there. Could somebody grab that notebook I left in my chair? It's a black notebook and my Bible. Right there. Thank you. And just want to go over a few things. The building class, it's hard for us to think that perhaps in 3 days with, 1 hour and a half sessions, we can come out of here, become builders or carpenters. And that's really not the main focus, although it is to give us an introduction and it is to instill in us a desire. Thank you so much. A desire to do something that God would desire us to do. So why this class? Why carpenter building? Well, for one, the Bible says that we'll be doing two things in the new earth. We'll be planting gardens and what? Building houses, right? And Jesus was a carpenter, and I think everybody knows that, right? And there's a reason why he was a carpenter. There was a reason why he was a gardener. And so that's why I want to try to bring in the spiritual reason why we should become involved in learning to use our hands and our abilities and grow. And those that have not done it, and if we do it, how should we continue to do it? It's very important to do everything in the Spirit of Christ. You can go to YouTube and find out a lot of information on how to build things, how to put things together, how to cut, etc., etc. But what I have not seen in YouTube is something that will show you what the Spirit of Christ, what Spirit possessed Christ as he was a carpenter. And that's what I want us to do, because I believe that the reason we're having these meetings is because of the times that we're living in. We're getting close to Canaan land. We're getting ready to go home. And so everything that we do, we need to do it unto the Lord. Everything that we've been hearing today and everything that we've been hearing in these meetings has to do with character building. And so everything that we do has to do with the development of our character. If you're working in a garden, as we heard Brother George repeatedly speak, it is character building. If we're doing work, missionary work, should we not be a friend? Isn't that also character building? Learning to be a friend and learning to be selfless, right? And not be selfish. I believe that all of us here, God has given us talents and given us abilities that sometimes we don't even know that we have. I want to go over just a few reasons why we should learn carpentry. The first reason that I'm going to share with you, and this is not exhaustive, but just some of the reasons that I've discovered personally, is because it was part of God's plan for true education. Have you ever heard of the Madison School in Tennessee near Nashville years ago in the early 1900s, 1904, I think it was? Sister White spoke to Brother Sullivan, about buying a land, hundreds of acres, and in this property that they were going to build this education center, they were going to learn several things. They were going to learn agriculture. They were going to learn the medical missionary work. They were going to teach the gospel, and they were going to also teach building. The structure that they had in that place, they actually put up the buildings that they had in this place that they were building, this Madison School. And Sister White says that this was the pattern for true education. A person could leave there and go anywhere in the world and work as a missionary. He could build, he could treat diseases, he could teach the gospel, right? And he could learn about agriculture. You should see how many people I've spoken to today that are ministers that wish they had the ability to work with their hands. And really that was part of the true education that God wanted us to have. The other reason that I want to bring up why we should learn carpentry and teach carpentry is because our young people need to learn to use their hands more than using a computer. And too much has been taken away from them, and too much of it has been exploited. Carpentry today has been exploited. When I worked downtown, it was about working long hours in very dangerous conditions, up on a high-rise, 72 stories is the highest that I worked on. And it was very dangerous. Multiple times I almost died, but I know it was by the grace of God that I did not fall off the building, but I did see many did fall, and I saw many accidents. And so carpentry has been exploited, and too many times now it's about, what pays good, what can I do to make good money? Well, that's not really the main reason why we should learn it, but young people can learn carpentry and make a living out of it. But another reason I put on here is they can be useful in the home as well. They can help their parents. They can help their grandparents. Do you know how expensive it is these days to hire a carpenter to come and do some work? You're looking at least $90 an hour, if not more, to get someone to come, and then they'll charge you a minimum charge. I know carpenters that charge $800 a day to come out and do work, just for a day. And things that sometimes that you and I can actually do without having to know so much profound knowledge in carpentry. Another reason that I think that learning carpentry is very useful is because it develops common sense. Did you know that the Spirit probably says that learning carpentry develops common sense? So learning how to build things, learning how to put things together and using our hands makes us use common sense. Now, I say it very respectfully, but there's sometimes when someone who does have no skill, no hand skills, it's hard to give them a picture, an imagination of something practical. Does that make myself clear? And I'm not trying you to think of anybody, but sometimes you find a challenge with somebody who doesn't have any skills because their ability to put something together in their mind is limited. Well, learning to develop the use of carpentry can help you develop common sense. And lastly, as I said before, it helps us build character. I want to share with you a few things that I think are very important for us to learn here. You see on the screen there, mind increases strength by continual effort. So we should never say, I've already done my career, I've already learned what I got to learn. We should desire to learn more. We should desire to put our mind to use. A wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increases strength. So we all know that the mind is like a muscle, and the more we use it, the more we put it to work, the stronger it becomes. Put your highest power, this is from, I believe it's Sons and Daughters 106. This is, put your highest power into your effort. Call to your aid the most powerful motives. You are learning. Endeavor to go to the bottom of everything you set your hand to do. Never aim lower than to become competent in matters which occupy you. Many times we start something and we put it down because we couldn't figure it out. We try to start to build something or to put something together and we give up too quickly. This image here can be something that some of us have sometimes thought of or heard us say. Somebody else can just do it, right? The mind naturally learns to be satisfied with that which requires little care and effort, and to be content with something cheap and inferior. Do you know that the mind is by nature lazy? And sometimes, and I'm sure like many of you parents are trying to teach our children not to be lazy. Some reason, I don't know if I was like that. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure I was. But children sometimes want the lazy way out of things, don't they? They want the easy way out of things. Well, that's part of the nature. We just got to learn to work with their character as well as ours. God has given the human mind great power. Now listen to this. God demands of you vigorous and earnest intellectual efforts, and with every determined effort, your powers will strengthen. So God is requiring us to continue to use our mind in learning and growing in different skills and abilities. Let me read to you a little example of what Jesus was like when he worked as a child. As Jesus worked in childhood and youth, mind and body were developed. We've read that in the Gospels. He did not use his physical powers recklessly. Now, this is important. You don't ever want to put yourself in harm's way. She writes another quote that she says, "We are never to do anything that will require us to ask God for a miracle." So we need to be careful about the things that we do and how we set ourselves up to do something. And we'll talk about safety in a little bit. But in such a way, so let me read that again. He did not use his physical powers recklessly, but in such a way as to keep them in health. In other words, Jesus was careful in the things that he did and how he did it. He was careful not to hurt himself or cut himself purposely or recklessly. That he might do the best work in every line. He was not willing to be defective even in the handling of tools. That means that he did not use a screwdriver like a chisel, right? Have you ever seen that? Somebody use a screwdriver like a chisel? Yeah, or a screwdriver like a prying bar. I've seen some tools and I realize that somebody here has been really misusing tools the wrong way, And so we want to really be careful and use the tool the way it was designed. He was perfect as a workman, as he was perfect in character. That is beautiful. I can't wait to one day be in this class and have Jesus teach me carpentry, And that's what he was. He was perfect as a workman as he was in character. So, you never read about the most exotic chair that was found that Jesus built, because Jesus wasn't about building an exotic chair or building an exotic table. That wasn't the purpose. But the simple table that he built it to perfection, and especially with the right character. By his own example, he taught that it is our duty to be industrious, which means diligent and hardworking, that our work should be performed with exactness and thoroughness, and that such labor is honorable. And so I want you guys to think in your mind that either you want to learn a little bit more about carpentry, maybe some of you already do it. I know that when, even me being so many years a carpenter, moving to the country in Wisconsin 13 years ago, I had to retrain my mind. I had to change the way I thought, the way I behaved, even as I was working in the country. Typically in the field, we're always in a rush and everything is go. You're getting paid journeyman wages. So, the company expects you to work at a quick pace and produce to keep your job. And so we were always used to, working quickly and so when I get to the country and I began to do some work. And I remember my son Gabriel, he was about 4 or 5 years old when I'm recollecting a time when I'm actually working. And Gabriel already was beginning to be interested in working with me. And I remember I was doing I can't remember what kind of framing work I was doing. And I told Gabriel when he was 5 years old, Gabriel, you got to go over there and play because I'm busy working. And all of a sudden the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said to me, what are you doing? Your son wants to draw close to you. He wants to learn what you're learning. The mentality of getting it done quickly and let's go and hustle, that doesn't work in the country, And so then I stopped what I was doing and I went and looked for my son. When Gabriel was little, he wanted to wear everything that I wore. He wanted to do everything that I did. So I had an overall. So he asked his mother to buy him an overall. I had a hammer. He wanted his own hammer. And everything that a child, see, this was why it's so important. And I'm going to probably sidetrack a little bit. That's why it's so important for us to be men in the image of God, because children are looking to replicate what they see. If a son does not see the image of God in his father, he's going to look for an image and he's going to copy something. and hopefully it's copying what the Father is. And I didn't know this with my first son, and I was in the world, and then I don't want to give you the whole testimony right now, but I didn't know what a father was like, what a husband was supposed to be like, what a father in the image of God was supposed to be like. And I'm still learning, brothers and sisters. I was just sharing with a couple right now, just some of our experience at home. When we moved to the country, began to do worship as a family every single day. And the blessing it was to be able to have a family. And now the responsibility, I had to teach my son how to learn to hold his father accountable, for the things that I said and I did. And I was telling my brother, I said, when I was a kid, mother and father were never wrong. Everything they said was right, and you didn't argue, But we want to teach our children, to be able to question if something is not going in the direction that I'm teaching him. And that's something that we struggle with, because we're struggling with our characters, are we not? But it's helped me. The Bible says that iron sharpens iron and man sharpens man. And so I need my family to help me build my character, as they need me to help them with their character. And so this is why I'm including this, because learning to work in a country, learning to build, is going to require a continual mind connected with the idea of building a character like Christ. I still struggle, brothers and sisters. Sometimes I get impatient, and I say, Lord, I didn't respond the way I should. I didn't behave the way I should. And so then I asked the Lord to forgive me, because I want to be patient. And I said, and so, and it's very, we got to be careful, brothers and sisters, because as you're learning and as you're working, you don't want to become frustrated. And I'm going to read to you in a minute, probably tomorrow, some other quotes that are important of how Jesus worked in the carpenter's shop. And this is the reason why I take the time to not just teach you about tools or go over tools. For some of you are probably experts in tools, but to try to give you the mentality behind, the working in carpentry and building in the country when you're in your outpost. I have the privilege of living in an Amish community, and then Brother Moses can probably correct me on some of the things that I may say. And it's so beautiful to see how the Amish work. There's a good friend of mine, Brother Eli, and his son Jacob. They only have school up to the 8th grade. After that, they go out and they work usually with their family business. And Jacob works with his father. And I see how obedient he is, and I see how diligent he is in working, and just a really strong, sharp, hardworking young man. And to me, there's a sense of desire that we have that same quality of integrity in the work. And there's a lot of things that we can, learn from the Amish. Like I said, I live in an Amish community. I believe I'm blessed to live in their community. And I believe that they're blessed to have me in their community, because we share the gospel with them. We give them the desire of ages. We give them the great controversy, and we speak with them, and we share with them. But when people come out and visit us, sometimes they know we live in an Amish community. They say, "Hey, we want to go visit where the Amish live. We want to go see." And so I take them. They got animals, they got farms, and they love to visit and what have you. But that it was God's purpose that people would come out into the country and say, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the Adventists live? I want to go where they live. I want to see. I want to buy from them. I want them to build my house. I want them to." That was what God wanted, believe it or not. But they do a wonderful work, and many of them have just a wonderful integrity in the way they do things and how they build, and they take they take pride in what they build, and so we have a lot to learn also from them. But I know that they are still lacking one part, and that's the gospel of Jesus Christ, salvation. And so that's what God wants to do. He wants to build us that way, so that when we work with them, because we work together, but I want them not just to see another carpenter, but I want them to see the Spirit of Christ. And that puts me in a position even more so to make sure that by God's grace, I can reflect the Spirit of Christ as we work together. Because we work side by side. They're carpenters, I'm a carpenter, and I can't do it all by myself sometimes, but I want them to see the Spirit of Christ. I want them that when they eat with us, they eat the delicious plant-based meals that my wife prepares. I love it when they ask questions. So your ministry goes far more than just learning carpentry, brothers and sisters. It goes far more than learning how to use a hammer or a drill. It goes far more than that. Too much, right? The Bible tells us that he who is faithful in the little things will be faithful in the greater things. God will give us more knowledge as we put to right use and to good use the things that we receive. Some of the things that we have to think about when we're learning carpentry is not only how much money can I make, but how can I bless others? That's what happened to me when I went to the country. Lord, now with this ability that you gave me, how can I use it? First, I used it at home for my family. And now by God's grace, we don't only try to teach, but we try to build and we try to help people that are moving into the country and do things like that. So our mindset has to change, brothers and sisters. Jesus in John 17 prayed for unity. And sometimes I see that each man for himself. Everybody, just kind of, and I go back to the things that I learned in the Amish community. We had a big fire go through our town there, and one of the Amish lost a barn, a big barn. Next thing I know, I see a lot of Amish helping them there, and they take turns. And Brother Moses will probably tell you better how that works. But they have an economy. They have a system where if something goes bad with somebody, everybody comes in is required to donate days and time and resources to help him build his barn back up. It's not just, we're going to pray for you, brother. We're going to pray for you. No. We're going to help you build. Yes, brother.
Amish don't have insurance.
Amish don't have insurance. And that's why they do that. Their insurance is themselves. Right. Praise God. That's amazing. And so I share these things because this is what I desire for the Adventist community to look like. That we could become what God intended. They came from Europe, and they don't even know their history, by the way. Some of them don't know their history. I share with them their history, how they became, to the Anabaptists and all this. But, what they brought to this country was what we were supposed to continue on going forward. And part of that, brothers and sisters, is building. Part of that is working together and helping my brother, my sister, the widow, the elderly, what they need, what can we do to help each other. That's what God desires, brothers and sisters. And this is not just learning carpentry. Like I said, you can go to YouTube and learn this stuff. You can, go to Home Depot and ask somebody at Home Depot, what tools do I need for this project? But this is to combine what Jesus did. You know what Jesus did when he was at home? He took his carpentry skill and he helped his father and his family. He helped his skill in the gardening to help the family. He was a poor family. He came from a poor family. But his prior occupation was dedicated his first 30 years where? In the home. Then he had his 3.5 years of public ministry. So we got to be careful even with our own ministry, brothers and sisters. I got to be careful and I got to remind myself, don't lose too much time in ministry and forget about your family. Because that can happen. You can get so busy, you get so involved, traveling and going and coming, that later the children, at one time my children were like, Dad, I'm kind of getting tired of this because you're not dedicating time to us. I said, you're absolutely right. And we can get so involved. So we got to be careful, brothers and sisters. The first place that we need to work is in the home, and then it could be a blessing to others. All right, I want to go over a few tools. Some of you may be experts in tools already, but I want us to go over a few tools that will be helpful for us to understand. Now, like I said, I don't know if I said it before, but I will say it again. Carpentry is very broad. You can go from cabinet making, trim work, but I want to talk just about general rough carpentry, kind of like what you see here. This is just kind of rough carpentry, and this is kind of some of the things that we need to learn that are practical. I'm going to talk about some of the fundamentals in carpentry, and I'm going to try to go quick because I'm going to try to get a lot in these 3 days. But 3 things that you want to note down when you're building something: level, plumb, and square. Does everybody know what level is? Does everybody know what level is? Raise your hand if you don't know what level is, and I'll explain it. Okay? This is a level, okay? But this floor is not level. It's a little bit. Where's Brother Ernie? Brother Ernie? Okay, we'll talk later, Brother Ernie. Huh? Okay, let's put it on the pulpit here. Let's see if this pulpit is level. It's a little bit off level, okay, but we're going to get Brother Ernie another pulpit, amen? We're going to build him one. All right.
To compensate the floor?
To compensate the... Now, this is called plumb, okay? When we're going vertical, it's plumb. So right now I'm looking at this post. Brother Ernie, we're going to have to talk about this column too. No, I'm just kidding. But I just want you to understand what's a level, horizontal, plumb, and square. Square is, what is it? Can anybody tell me what square is? 9 degree. I mean, we all went to high school, right? We all went to grade school. A 90-degree angle, right? Plumb, level, and square are very fundamental when whatever you're building. 3-4-5 is a method to figure right. Yes, yes. Depending, you could also go kitty corner to kitty corner, right? So it depends what you're building and what you're doing. For instance, that roof over there, I'm just going to use it as an example, just so you understand. There were 4 posts when we got here, and they were not necessarily squared. So, but we needed the roof to be squared. So we had to frame the roof in a way that the metal. See, this sheet metal comes in 3 foot by X amount of lengths. But these sheets at the end are perfectly perpendicular. They're perfectly 90 degrees. They don't come on an angle. So in order to get those sheets to work perfectly perpendicular at a 90 degree, we had to make sure that that roof frame was what? Square. Square, exactly. So that's very important. If I would have just followed where the posts were and just framed it, we would have never been able to get the sheets up. They would have been all twisted and you would have had a lot of problems. So very fundamental to get plumb, level, and square. Okay, can you see the list up there of the tools? What is the first one we see up there?
Safety glasses.
Safety glasses. Very important. If you're going to be using any kind of tool, it's important. Even if you're just hammering, nails, you can hit a nail and the nail can fling. And I've seen a lot of accidents in the 39 years that I've been a carpenter. So you really want to use safety glasses because anything can happen. I mean, you could be cutting a board, something flies in your eye. I usually use these glasses as my safety glasses. There's a harder plastic, but something to protect your eyes you want to use. Shame on me, I forgot to bring earplugs. If you're using some loud power cutting tools, you want to protect your ears. What else do I have on there?
Hard hat.
Hard hat. Okay. If you're going to be working in an area where somebody is working above you, you want to get in the habit, if you're going to be doing it regularly, to wear a hard hat because someone can accidentally drop their hammer, someone can accidentally drop a tool, a nail, anything. Especially when you're working with tools like this above. I mean, this thing falls on your head. It could be pretty serious. So using a hard hat is a very good idea if you're the person, especially working below, and someone above you is working. We were required when I was working in the field to wear a hard hat because so many accidents. But use a hard hat and be wise when you're doing and thinking of safety. I didn't put up their ladders, but anytime you set up a stage, anytime you set up a ladder, make sure it's secure, make sure it's well placed. I mean, sometimes people do things, and you can see a lot of things that people do that put themselves at risk and have serious accidents. You don't need to be that high off the ground to have a serious accident. So please, always think of the safest way to work that you can make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself. Can you read to me what is that?
Framing.
Okay, let's talk about framing hammers. Now, there's a lot of different types of hammers. This is not a framing hammer because it's got a wood handle, and this is like a 16 ounce. So this is more like for trim. For lighter duty. It's also not very good for prying. You could pull small nails, but if you start pulling 16 penny nails, which is a 3 1/4 inch nail, 3-inch nail, you're going to break the handle because they're not designed for that. Usually you want to get either something that's got either a steel or a fiberglass, and it's 20 ounce, 22 ounce. Do I have the ounces there?
20 to 28.
20, right. Those usually the size of hammers. I like using this one in particular. It's got a grip handle. So it takes a little bit of the vibration away. This has got what is called a smooth face. This is the claw. This is a straight claw. And then just to show you this other hammer, this is what they call a curved claw, a straight claw. Usually your framing hammers are going to be a straight claw. Okay? And this one has a little bit of an advantage that you could actually put I'm just going to pretend that this is a nail. If I wanted to put this nail up high, I could go and then begin to nail. So it's got a little magnet in there for that. It's also got a little bit of you see that for pulling nails? So I could actually take this. I don't know if this is going to fit it because it's not a nail. Well, it is, but okay. So this particular hammer, you can change the face on it. Okay. The steel on it is a very light steel, so it's a very nice hammer. But let me tell you something about tools. You can buy tools sometimes at the thrift stores, garage sales, secondhand stores. You don't have to spend a lot of tools, and you can buy tools relatively inexpensive a lot of times. What else do I have up there, brother?
You have a tape measure?
Tape measure, okay.
Minimum 25 foot.
Minimum 25 foot. When you're doing rough carpentry, you want to have a tape measure. Minimum 25 foot. I have a 35 footer here. And most of your tape measures today will come out pretty far, and this is the advantage with a framing tape measure before it actually bends. Sorry about the flowers there, Brother Ernie. So, and then the same thing with this one here. It's a 30-footer, and again, they make them pretty wide so that when you're using your tape measure, you can stretch it out and you're measuring a board and it doesn't bend on you. Smaller tape measures, will for smaller work, cabinet work and things like that, you don't need such a big hammer. So again, I'm focusing mainly on what's called like rough carpentry. What else do I have under?
Carpenter pencil.
Carpenter pencil. Okay. These are usually your carpenter pencils. It's flat, correct? It's got a little bit more wood. It's got a little more lead. And the reason for that is because when you're marking wood, if you use a regular pencil, the lead on it wears out a lot faster. And it's very simple. You just take these pencils, you sharpen them like this, and then I just like to just make the point, and there you go. Okay. So you just get these carpenter pencils, you sharpen them with your utility knife.
And that was the next one.
Sharpening?
No.
Oh, utility knife. Okay. So in your carpenter tool belt, now is that toolbox or carpenter tool belt?
It says carpenter pencil and utility knife and speed square.
Rough carpenter tool belt. So I'm basically talking about the tools that you would normally wear. Now, why wear a tool belt? The reason for that is because when you're working, you don't want to put down your pencil and your tape measure and your hammer, and you're doing something here. Where did I leave my hammer? Oh, there it is. And does somebody see my tape measure? And you got your tools all over the place. You want to keep your tools organized, and it makes it easier to work, and it makes it easier to have the tools that you need. I give you this list because some people have gone out and bought a tool belt, and then they start putting tools in there that you don't really need when you're doing rough carpentry. But this is ideal what you want to have in your tool belt. What else do I have in there besides the utility pencil?
Speed square and chalk line.
Speed square. Okay. So the speed square, this is basically a square that is used to put up against a 2x4. Well, let's say, for instance, like this board right here. If I wanted to mark this post, I put this right up against here, and I mark it, and I automatically have a 90-degree angle. So I'm ready to cut that board. If I wanted to cut this board, do the same thing. Put it on there. See how it's got this edge? Then I can describe it, and I give myself a right angle so that I can then cut it. That's what the purpose of the speed square is.
And the 45.
412 pitch.
Right, and it also has, speed square has multiple uses, and thank you, Brother Mo. It can tell you how to cut the angle of a pitch of a roof, because what happens is this pivot point turns, and maybe I'll talk a little bit about more of that the third day, a little bit about stairs and angles, and how to figure out for a roof or how to figure out for a staircase. All right, so this is the basic function of a speed square. Then I have chalk line. Okay, the chalk line basically goes for multiple uses. If I wanted to put a string line across there and I wanted to cut it, I would use a string line. I'm just going to do it right here just so that I don't chalk up the whole place. But if I did this, I take it off. You see the line? That's basically what it does. It's a chalk line.
That will also double as a plumb box.
Yes, sometimes, like for instance, when I was trying to figure out the slight angle on that roof there, all I did was basically, I locked my speed square, I hung it on there, and I marked it. Once I marked it, I took my speed square, and I put it on there, and I could figure out the pitch. It was a 112 pitch, right? But mainly what you will find yourself using this for is going to be the snap line for either cutting or for nailing or to get some kind of a guide when you're working. This is a chalk line. Very good. And what else do I have in there?
That's it to nails.
What about the laser tape measures? Well, laser tape measures, I've never really used them. My sister's asking about, there's some tape measures now that have a laser. There's some that you can measure the distance. I've never used them. I don't know how accurate they are. Does anybody have any experience with those? I don't have any experience with those, but I think the good old tape measure would be just fine, and you're not worried about running out of battery and then you can't, use it. So, but thank you for that question. One more thing that I like to keep in my personal tool belt is a pair of linesman pliers. They're kind of nice because sometimes if you have a nail that broke off or something and you got to pull, you got to, cutting a piece of wire or something like that. These are very handy. I like to keep these in my tool belt. And then I also like to keep, but besides my carpenter pencil, I like to keep a marker. Sometimes you need to make a mark on something that you want it to remain and to stay on there. Okay, That's it on the carpenter pencil, right? Do I have another list there? Nails. Okay. I am going to be in. Let me just bring this here. I think I do have it here. I'm going to try and see if I remember if I brought any nails with me.
You have 8B and 16B nails.
Right. Okay. This is an 8-penny nail. And I'll just talk really briefly about the nails. This is 8-penny common. And the reason they call them penny nails is because, just a little fun fact, back in the day, it would cost 8 pennies to make a nail. They would be forged. Every nail used to be hand forged. And so nails were very expensive. A 16-penny nail cost 16 pennies. And so they had to forge a nail, and it will cost you 16 cents. Today, the way they make nails, they come in this spool of wire, and it just feeds it through a machine, and the machine cuts it, and then another machine punches the end of it, and it makes a head on it. That's how nails are made. And it's basically made out of a wire. That's what it is. It's a soft steel. It's not a hard steel. There is nails that are hardened for hardwoods, but usually your nails are soft. It's a wire nail, and then they cut the points on it. A 16-penny nail would be larger, would be about 3 inches. And then, like I said, what is that? 3.5 inch, about 3.5 inches for a 16-penny nail. And so your nails, depending on the thickness of the wood, these days, a lot of folks, not that you couldn't use nails. I don't want to discourage that because, if budget is an issue, then you're not going to go and buy, power tools and things like that. The reason I forgot to bring so many nails is because I brought my nail gun. And so the nail gun takes a different type of nail. Let's see if I can get this nail out of here. Don't worry, it's got no battery. It's not going to shoot anybody.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking down.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. If not, I got some in my truck. But this comes in cartridges. Let me see. There it comes. This comes in cartridges with the nails already. See, now these nails, they don't call them 16-penny nails anymore. They go by 3-inch nails, 3 1/4, 3 1/2, 2 3/8. And this is a 3-inch nail. So I knew kind of what we were going to be doing here with Brother Ernie. So I just grabbed a bunch of 3-inch nails and 2 3/8-inch nails because I knew what we were going to be doing. So the nails basically go into the gun. You put a battery in there, and then you shoot nails versus nailing them, hand nailing them. But I don't discourage using your hammer, And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So that's basically what nails, just really briefly, there's nails that are designed to be exposed to environment and nails that are not designed to be exposed to the weather because they will begin to rust, and then before you know it, you'll have issues with the integrity of the nail. All right, I'm going to just try to cover very quickly here. What typically goes into a toolbox? What kind of tools should you buy just to have like rough carpentry when you're doing work outdoors? Can you read to me what's on that list, brother?
Dry line.
Okay, so this is a dry line right here. This dry line is multiple uses. You're going to probably use this in your garden with Brother George. Is that not right, Brother George? But your dry line has many uses. We use it here to string across the end. We use it to string across the back for the post. So your dry line is basically, that's what it is. It's a dry line. It's a strong nylon line to help you find a straight point. So it's got multiple uses, and it's something that you want to keep in your toolbox. What do I have next?
Handsaw.
The handsaw. Okay.
15-inch coarse saw.
Okay, so we got multiple handsaws here. If I'm not mistaken, here you go. And we're going to be learning how to use these on our small project. So basically, a handsaw is measured by 2 or 3 different manners. The handsaw is measured by the length of the blade, and then it's measured by the amount of teeth per inch. This particular handsaw, I think it's a 912. It is a 912, yes. So that means that there's 9 teeth in every inch, okay? The more teeth, the finer the cut. The less teeth, the coarser the cut. But this is good for rough carpentry. It's a 9-tooth handsaw, and it's good for cutting wood. What it does have, at the tip, it has a 12-point. You can see at the very end. See how the teeth are smaller? Can anybody see that? Yeah. And that could be for cutting small pieces of trim. If I want to cut a little piece of trim, yes, sister. Yes, typically it's what it is. Now, I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, the saws, the hand saws usually are designed to cut with what is called cross cut. It cuts across the grain. Nobody really is buying a whole lot of ripping saws, a saw to rip with the grain. So the grain basically is, if you can see here, you see the grain? You see the grain on the wood? Can everybody see that? Okay, these are designed to cut cross grain. They're designed to cut across the grain. And the teeth, the way they're designed, sister, you can't see them, but they are slightly open, right? To open up the cut, it gives you the curve for the blade not to bind when you're cutting through. So yes, this part here would be just slightly wider than the actual blade. Otherwise, they would bind. Correct. The set, right? The set, correct. And so there's different saws here. We're going to be using them. We're going to be cutting some wood. And for those of you that have not really ever cut wood, I want you to have experience in learning how to measure and square and cut. We're going to be doing a small project for Brother Ernie. We're going to be making 2 tables for his trays, for his starter trays. So we're going to be working on that. What else do I have in it? Torpedo level. Okay.
2 foot, 4 foot.
Okay, so we have here, this is called a torpedo level. This is a small level, okay? Usually used by plumbers, but I like to keep one in my tool belt, in my toolbox, because when I'm cutting stairs, I like to see if, before I nail up my stringer, I'll put it on the run and make sure that my stringer is coming out the way I want it, I want it level. So I like this little guy because I can use it there, or I can use it in areas, sometimes you can use it for hanging a picture, or just small things, you can use it for leveling out the screen. So it's just a handy level to have. Then your 2 foot square, it's a 2 foot long square. Yes.
Another one, the bricklayers use a little torpedo.
That's right. The bricklayers also use the little torpedo level. If you can notice, actually, this one too has a 45-degree angle there, because plumbers will put it up against their plumbing when they're trying to get that 45 on there. So this is something that usually plumbers and, like you said, bricklayers will use. 2 foot level, and usually the 2 foot levels. Bricklayers will use a wooden 2 foot level. Okay, but this 2 foot level is made out of aluminum, if I'm not mistaken, and again, it's used for level or for plumb. You can see the bubbles on there, and I can use the plumb. Now you want to double check, make sure that you have a good level. You put it on there, and if you turn it around, you want to make sure that it's reading the same thing to make sure that your level is good. Okay, so 2 foot level, and then you have a 4 foot level, just a longer level for especially if you're using longer boards. You want to use a longer level because it'll span farther. Okay, so that's what a 4 foot level would be handy for. What else do I have? Nail puller. Okay, this is a cat paw. This is a nail puller. This is very handy because a lot of times you'll put nails in the wrong spot, and then you're like, how do I get that nail out of there? Well, the only way to really get that nail out of there is with a cat paw. And you would take your hammer and you would nail this part into the wood where your nail is at, and it'll actually bite into underneath the nail, and you're able to prop it up so that you can pull your nail out. That's what the nail puller is for. Every once in a while you'll find yourself making a mistake that you put a nail in the wrong spot. So this is a very handy tool to keep in your toolbox.
100-foot steel tape.
100-foot steel tape. I don't think I brought my 100-foot steel tape. Yeah. Basically what it is, 100 steel foot tape is just a tape that you kind of wind up. It measures out 100 feet. Okay. You may use it sometimes when you're building something as big as this, building a barn. You may use it, I don't know, do you use 100-foot tapes in the garden, Brother George? So you use it, when you're doing very big, large gardens. So 100-foot tape basically is just 100-foot long tape that you wind up, with by hand. What else do I have in there? Pry bar. Okay, flat bar. This guy here is very handy. It's used to pry to, again, you would use your hammer to get in between some wood. If you wanted to get, behind this wood here, I want to take that wood out, I would go ahead and do something like this from above. I get behind her and start prying on that wood. So the flat bar is very handy. And it's multiple uses that you've been using. Sometimes you can use it to pry over a wood. We were using this, when were we using? Oh, when we were putting that beam up there, right? We were putting that steel beam up there, and the post, we wanted them to move open a little bit, so we used the pry bar to kind of pry it open a little bit in order to get the beam in place, and then we could, get this. So this is nice and flat.
Just doors too.
It's good for doors, yeah. It's good for a lot of multiple uses, definitely. Not just for demolition work.
Electrical saw blade wrench.
Electrical saw blade wrench. Okay. Now the reason I put that in there is because if you have a electrical saw, I don't have it with me right now. I'll have that tomorrow when we're doing our project. You'll have to use that to loosen the blade on and off the saw.
Number 2 Phillips.
And then always keep some screwdrivers in there. Number 2 Phillips.
And flat.
Okay, and a flathead screwdriver. And these are very handy because when you are doing, just when you're changing, for instance, a lot of times on the older blades, you'll need that to change the blade, on your utility saw. But more so, sometimes you need to take apart, like let's say, for instance, here, Brother Ernie says, you know what, we got to take this back some, and I got to take these apart. Well, I'll just take my screwdriver in there and start taking this apart so I can disconnect the electrical. And so you need a flat and a Phillips number 2 screwdriver in your carpenter's toolbox. It's handy to have.
Tin snips.
Tin snips.
Preferably yellow.
Preferably yellow. The yellow tin snips. I had to borrow Brother Ernie's red tin snips because I packed in such a rush that I did not double check if I had everything that I needed. The red tin snips?
Right there in the back of the table behind the electronics.
I see some chips. Oh, here you go. Okay. These are red tin snips. The yellow tin snips are, the reason I say yellow is because yellow is what they call a straight cutter. Okay. These are these are left, and the greens are right. The color on this is, if you wanted to cut and start to go in a direction, you would use a certain color. So with the red, you could start cutting to the left if you were cutting metal. But the reason I put yellow on there is because, for instance, when we had these beams delivered, they came strapped with metal straps. And so in order to cut them, you needed some tin snips. The metal that was delivered, that Brother Ernie picked up, it was strapped with metal. And again, I had to use a trick, to bust the metal. But normally it's easy just to give your tin snips and you cut them, So the tin snips are handy to keep in your toolbox.
Adjustable wrench.
Okay, and then we have a 10-inch, 12-inch adjustable wrench. This is an adjustable wrench. And this is handy because, again, in your carpenter toolbox, just like, for instance, here, if I have to take this apart, I have a wrench that I can start taking things apart. If you're remodeling your bathroom, you're doing some demolition, it's handy to take the plumbing lines apart. It's just a handy piece of tool to have in your toolbox.
And then duplicate the 25-foot with pencil.
Okay, and always have an extra. You can see I have this and I have my tool belt extra because your tool belt breaks. Now you're stuck. You're like, oh man, I got to run all the way to Home Depot. What's the nearest Home Depot around here? Hour and a half. Look at that. To go get another tape measure. So you want to make sure you have an extra tape measure in your tool belt in case your tape measure breaks. The same thing with utility pencils and what else did I have in there? And an extra framing square, right? Okay. So this is what's called a framing square here. Framing hammer. Okay. All right. So you want to have an extra hammer. Usually the steel one will not break, but somebody else might give you a hand, and grab a hammer and now you're working with someone that's giving you a hand. Did I have that on there?
Yeah, that's the bottom framing square.
Okay. And this is a framing square. This is basically, and again, I'll tell you where we use this today, or the days that we've been here. In order to cut that beam, I use this framing square to put it up against it once I had my length, and now I got my perpendicular mark. Remember my 90-degree angle? Right? So I measured that all the way across. I marked it, and then I was able to mark it and cut it so that I have a nice, clean, perpendicular cut. But this is also used for figuring out for stairs and for roofs. So I will go over those formulas right now just to not overwhelm you. But if somebody is interested, you can come and talk to me, and I can give you the formulas and show you how to use this to cut rafters and to cut also wood stringers. So anybody has any questions, any comments, anything as we've gone so far? No? What time is it right now, brother? What do we have? 4:40. What time are we over at? I beg your pardon?
Yeah, a pre-made toolbox for us to get.
A pre-made what?
Toolbox.
Oh, pre-made toolbox.
For sale.
I used to take things to sell, tool belts already with everything in it, and then I think one camp meeting we went, I had 5 of them and none of them sold. I'm like, and then I went to one camp meeting and I sold them all. So I said, well, I don't understand if I'm going to sell them or not sell them. I'm just carrying them around. So I haven't made the time to carry things around to sell. But I do like to put together sometimes a tool belt, which is your happy medium tools. They're not the most expensive, but they're not the cheapest. Because if you buy very cheap tools, I don't recommend that. You're going to be spending to buy another tool again. So, yes.
Nails, are they very important? The size and the type of nail that you use
The nails?
at home when something is needed and you're the one, like I'm the one, to do the nail. Is it very important?
Yes, it is. It's very important. It depends what you're doing. A lot of times, let's say, for instance, you're going to hang a picture on the wall. Is that maybe something you're referring to? So you want to use a smaller nail. Maybe, sometimes you can use like the nail that I just had here was an 8-penny nail. But before you put your nail in the wall, you want to make sure that you find a stud, because if you put it right through the drywall, which is typically what most houses have, is you're going to go through that drywall and you're not going to hit anything. So that nail is really not going to hold much. So you want to make sure that you find the location of where you would have a wood stud behind there. That would be, but you would use a smaller nail. So yes, you want to be wise. You don't want to use a big nail in something that should be a smaller nail. Yes, absolutely. Well, the other thing we can talk about, yes.
If you're gonna do like a patio, like concrete, and you have to make sure it's pitched, which tool do you use to make sure you got the right pitch?
Okay, that's a very good question. So he's talking about a concrete patio, and you want to have a pitch. So if you're going to do a patio, the best thing to do is first level it. Level it where you're going to, not where you're going to finish it, but for instance, you would do what's called wood stakes, preferably. You'd put wood stakes on the ends, and you want to put it, you want to make a benchmark, a level benchmark all the way around. Let's say, for instance, it's a 10 by 12 patio. So the best way would be to put a benchmark, a level benchmark all the way around. Now you can make adjustments. Now I want this patio to only pitch down, say 1 inch. Okay. For instance, a garage, usually 20 by 20 garage, usually have about 1.5 inch pitch. So we first would frame the garage frame all level. Then we would put a pitch where we want the concrete to go. So does that make sense? You would first frame it level. Then now you have a benchmark to work off. Now you can adjust what you're going to do to make that elevation drop. Correct. You're going to frame it at the height you want the concrete to be. Okay. And then after you, right, if it's going to be a 3.5 inch to 4 inch, 2 by 4. If you want it thicker, then you're going to go to a 2 by 6. And that's exactly what I was going to touch on right now on wood, sizes and dimensions. But you would use that depending on the thickness that you want. And typically for a patio, 4 inches is more than enough. Okay, but you want to first make sure that you have a benchmark, a level benchmark. Then you make your adjustment of dropping that either 1 inch, 1.5 inches, or your desired pitch. If you're going to pour concrete there, for a patio, you don't need that much pitch.
And it's actually going to be like for a shed, so it's going to be more like a garage. But I was just thinking, how do you check from this end to this end if they're 1.5 inches lower?
Oh, okay, very good. So a couple of ways to make that work is you can get, what size are you going to build it?
Roughly, it's going to be
20 by 25. Okay, if you're going to do that dimension, then you can do a couple of things. You can use what is called a water level. Okay, basically what it is a plastic tube. Okay. No, it's actually, you can go to any hardware store, and it's a plastic tube. It's just a plastic tube. It comes in a roll. You can, it's very flexible. It's just a plastic tube. You fill it with water. You can put a little dye in there if you want, but if not, just the water is fine. Okay. You want to lay it flat, and then you're going to hold it at the 25 feet. You're going to hold it at one end and let the water stop moving. You're going to make yourself a benchmark. Mark it here and mark it there. Now you have 2 level points. Right. Yeah. So now you measure down to the height that you desire. So that you measure down to the height that you desire. So let's just imagine. Right. So let's just imagine you have this plastic hose, right? This plastic tube, flexible, clear. You fill it in with water, right? You leave a little bit of space at each end. Someone holds it at this end. You lay it on the ground. Someone holds it at this end. The water in that line will seek its own level. Okay, it'll seek its own level. It'll balance out. Now, when the water stops moving in that water line, you make a mark on this end. You make a mark on that end. Now you have 2 points that are perfectly level. Now you can mark down, to your desired height. So you don't have to go up that high. You can go up only 4 feet. You follow me? That's one way. The other way that you can do it is with a straight edge. Depending on how critical the level is, in this case, it's going to be a shed. You might get away with a straight edge. You could just use it at a 4-foot level, okay? And you get a nice straight 2x4 by 16 or 2x6 by 2x4 by 20, a long board. You make sure that it's nice and straight, and you can use your level on that. Put it in the middle. You want to put it in the middle, correct? You want to put it in the middle of the board, and then one person will hold it at one desired height, and the other person will hold it at the other desired height, and you tell the gentleman on your left or the person on your left, go up a little bit, go up, stop right there, mark it, and then they'll mark it. Does that make sense? Yeah, so you want to get a straight edge. You want to make sure that the board is nice and straight, because if the board is crooked, it's not going to give you accuracy. But for a shed, you'd be more than enough using a straight edge and a 4-foot level. Yes?
Sam, one suggestion I have for everyone in this area, do not use wood stakes. There's too many rocks down there.
Yeah,
Right.
I learned the hard way, because in California, I always use wood. I'd buy a pack, and they would break, they'd get to a rock, and then I wouldn't be able to go any further. You'd rather do a round ones at Home Depot.
The steel. Yeah. You can do it with a steel stake. You can do it with a steel stake. You pound a steel stake in the ground. Yeah.
They have holes in the steel.
They have holes. And then if you do a steel stake, you want to then use, if you do a steel stake, you want to use this guy right here, a marker. It's got a small enough point that you can get a mark on your steel and be able to see it. Yes, Mo?
Talking about levels, if you're doing a lot of construction work, you want to get a nice laser level.
Yeah, and I was going to go there. I'm just trying to keep people from buying, spending a lot of money. I do have a laser level. I have a couple of them. One of them that we use when we're doing outside concrete work, for big slabs. It's what excavators use. It's about $1,800 for that kind of level. Or you can buy this. Milwaukee makes a nice level, and I think you got one too, right? The laser levels, the small Milwaukee. You got the DeWalt, but I got a Milwaukee level that you can use also, and it's very easy to use. They come in different price ranges, anywhere from $280, I think, to $580, because it'll give you different points. Mine will give you three different angles on it. So you can purchase and invest in a laser level. If you have the budget to purchase a tool that's going to be costly, think of how you can not only use it for yourself, but think of how you can help others and share and bless others with it. This is the way what you have, consecrate everything that you do, everything that you have, consecrate it unto the Lord. Whatever you do not consecrate unto the Lord, you know that the devil will use it against you. So anything that you do, consecrate it unto the Lord. And be a blessing to yourself, like what's Brother Ernie's motto? Be blessed and be a blessing. Be blessed and know that the Lord, if you have the budget to purchase something, a lot of things that you can purchase today, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it, was battery operated tools. In a time, living out here in the country, this is probably the best way for a solar system to use power tools is the battery, because power tools that you plug in, especially any power tool, what it does to a solar system, it gives it the sudden draw, onto your solar system. So they're not. It's just like deep well pumps. You want to get a deep well pump that's designed for a solar system. Otherwise, you're gonna right, because you give a beating to your solar system. But these are nice because you charge them slowly. You put them to charge, and so I recommend if you're gonna use Milwaukee, then stick with Milwaukee. If you're gonna buy DeWalt, then just stick with DeWalt. But if you want real tools, get Milwaukee. No, I'm just kidding, Brother George. It's a joke we always have with those that use Milwaukee, but they're both the same. They're both equally good, but just stick to the same one because all your tools, I think there's probably about 80 tools right now that you can get, that will fit all your different, tools. So use the same brand, whenever you get, power tools. Maybe I'll speak really quickly about these. This is called an impact wrench, an impact driver. And the reason for that is because when it's driving a screw in there, it's giving it a bunch of impacts. you know, when you're driving a screw. And now maybe I'll just make a little sample here, and you're going to hear it. It's not going to damage the post. Can you hear it? A bunch of hammering. It works on impact. Whereas if I was to use my drill to do that, it doesn't do that. And the drill is designed to drill holes, not so much to draw screws. So the drill, especially if I have it on drill mode, see that? So the drill can do it. I'm not saying it can't, but it's designed to put drill bits on it and bore holes. That's what the drill is for, mostly. This one has the ability to drive a hole in concrete if you use the right bit to drill a hole in concrete. It's got a hammer drill. And this also does that motion with a carbide tip on it to drill a hole on concrete. This is what's called a reciprocating saw, a sawzall, and it just moves back and forth. I carry this little package with different sizes, you know, of blades, right? Make sure that you try to keep your tools organized. I've seen a lot of times people that have tools and they just kind of throw everything. And, you know, what is 1 Corinthians 14:40? Yeah, God is a God of what? Order. You know, you imagine if you go into a kitchen, a woman, and she doesn't know where her spatulas are at. She goes, I know they're somewhere in the pile of that drawer there somewhere. Isn't it nice to have your things where you need them when you need them? You know, I can tell somebody over the phone exactly where to go get something in my shop, you know, because you have to have things organized, you know. So be organized as you do things. Remember, we're trying to develop the character of Christ. So being organized with your tools and treating your tools the right way, you know, especially, for instance, chisels. I rarely like letting somebody else use my chisel. It takes me a while to sharpen these. And all you need to do is hit a nail or a screw one time, and I got a big nick on it, you know. So unless somebody knows how to use a chisel, I'll let them use it. A chisel, by the way, this is called a butt chisel. See this head here? This is designed to take blows. There's other chisels that don't have this. They're not designed to take blows. They're just a paring chisel. You can use it just to use with your hands, okay? But this is called a butt chisel because it's got the steel butt on there designed to use the hammer in order to drive, you know, to mortise out wood. So, and there's different sizes. This is 1.5 inches. This is a 1-inch chisel. And so, and then I keep other things in my toolbox, like smaller flat bars, you know, like this, that are handy sometimes to get into little smaller areas. And then with the tomorrow we'll be using some power tools tomorrow. We're going to be using a power. What I first want you tomorrow to learn, those of you that have really never cut, I want you to learn to use the handsaw, how to measure, how to cut, and I want to, you know, you to get the feel of what it means, you know, to cut wood the correct way and the right way. And then we're going to build, start on the project that Brother Ernie has us for tomorrow. Anybody else has any questions or any doubts? Yes.
So, this is a two-part. I just want some advice that you have with that, working with wood and aluminum and 80/20 and everything. So, for example, if I was going to build a sprinter van, tiny home, and I was going to use the 2080 skeleton and then using wood, what kind of experience or tips and tricks would you work with that?
That's a very good question. Always work with, number one, work with what is accessible, you know. Work with what is accessible. Oh, the question. Okay, so he has a question. He has a question about building a tiny home. Using wood and metal and different materials like that, correct? Did I understand your question correctly? So anytime you're going to build something, look into what materials are readily available in your area. You know, something that's going to be, look at your resources. Are you going to be able to work with the metal? Do you have experience in the metal, or do you have more experience with the wood? Or is somebody going to help you working with the wood, or vice versa, working with the metal? Usually wood would probably be more favorable, I want to say right off the bat. Metal is more for a particular reason that you would use metal. Fire, it could be one. The other could be, you know, if you're going to use metal on you know, then you have to get into structural metal, especially if you're going to put load bearing on top of that, you know, if you're going to build that tiny home. I would recommend wood. It's much easier to get. and easier to work with if you don't have the experience on metal. There is people that are making sheds and tiny homes out of metal, but again, make sure you have the resources and make sure you have the acquired skill, whether it's someone that's going to help you or you're going to do it yourself. So that would be my recommendation. But I would probably lean more towards the wood because usually that's what people are more accessible, in these places. So I don't know if that helps the question. And there's nothing wrong with a tiny home, because it could be a beginning place for you to live in the country. But you want to think of going from a tiny home to something bigger, because you want to always have people come and visit. You always want to have people over. So nothing wrong with a tiny home, but you want to think of visitors. You want to think of people coming in. But, like for instance, when we moved out to the country, we moved into a camper for 7 months, 8 months. Then we moved into a single wide, 780 square foot single wide mobile home. It was too small because we constantly wanted to have people come over. Then we got into a double wide mobile home, and now we've even built rooms for people to come and visit. So always think of others that can come and visit you, when you think of those lines.
Environment too. Sometimes the environment would dictate a brick home versus a wood home versus a wood stucco home versus a metal.
That's another very key factor. Yes. If you have, for instance, I know way down in the south, near we were in near New Orleans, and they had a problem with termites over there. So you have to take those things into consideration. Your environment has a lot to do with it. Exactly. Wind.
Florida, you got
Right.
hurricanes here, you got heat, sun.
Exactly. And in Florida probably would be the ideal way to build and accessible materials, right? Because of the area that you're living in. So that's a very important thing to take into consideration. Exactly. Yes, and see the environment that you are living in.
Insulation.
Exactly. Now you got to go from a 2x4 wall to a 2x6 wall. If you're getting over here, you can build with 2x4 walls, right?
I do 2x6 myself.
Right. But the zone allows 2x4 walls. Yeah. Okay. Where we're at, they don't. You'll never pass with a 2x4 wall because of the cold. It's too cold to go with a 2x6 wall. So, but 2x6 wall would be better even here, especially if you're cooling the house. You're gonna have a better R value on your exterior walls. Okay. All right. So yes.
On tools. I'm an auto mechanic. And personally, I don't like to loan out my tools because sometimes they don't come back. And if they do, they get ruined. What I would recommend is people buy their own and take care of them. And it's better like that because sometimes you lend your tools out, sometimes they don't come back, and if they're broken, sometimes people will tell you that they're broken, and you're used to using your tools, and you can break yourself.
Okay, and that would be a personal. That's my brother says that he has borrowed tools and he personally doesn't like to lend tools because they don't come back or they come back broken, and then that is a risk we take. That is definitely a risk you take. So that again goes to being responsible. If a person is responsible, if a person is not responsible with their tools, then you might be in a dilemma where you might have to maybe remind them, hey, listen, if I borrow you this tool, can you assure me that by next week I can have it back? That would be a personal decision. I have faced myself borrowing tools as well and having that issue. I've been tempted to say no more, but the Lord tells me otherwise.
I wanted to say that I always recommend to people that you need so many tools, but you can't afford to buy all the tools at the same time. So maybe once a month you buy one thing, or once every 2 months you buy one thing. And at the end of the year, you'll see that your toolbox starts getting bigger and bigger, and you start having your own tools.
Yeah, that's a very good way of doing it. You see what you need, what you're building, and what kind of tool you think you need to purchase and to invest in, and purchase as you go. Again, with that mentality that you're going to use it. Also, not only to benefit yourself, but to benefit others. So that's to keep in mind. It's a good idea to buy tools while we can. Remember, we're probably in the time of no buy, no sell. We probably will not be thinking of building additions and things like that, But right now, while we are doing country living, right now we need tools. Jesus used tools, and we spoke about how he handled his tools. So, we do need tools right now. Yes, sister.
Yeah, we have a lot of single women that are starting country living also. What tools do you recommend like that a woman could be able to cut wood with or handle without it harming her?
The list that I gave here is a good way to start with tools. Is a good way to start with tools. And then I really, my desire is that we would have more of a network. You know, this is part of my thought that has been for a while, that we would have as an Adventist a network of people that were always willing to work with each other. Let's say, for instance, somebody in another state is moving to the country, and that person needs help. Well, that person not only will receive help, but that person will also commit to help others. Kind of like what the Amish do, right? Like I was saying, an economy where we help each other. You know, because I've heard a lot of people, and I've gotten, you know, even people that approach me. You know, I'm a single woman. I want to move to the country. What do I do? You know, how can I, you know, work on these skills and things like that. So that's why in God's economy, nobody was left behind. You know, the widow, you know, the fatherless, everybody was cared for. And that's what we need to, you know, take our mentality and think that way, to help each other, you know.
So you don't really recommend that a woman tries to get a saw or something.
Well,
and things on her own?
Well, one of the things I was going to talk about, maybe I'll just jump a little bit, is plan. You know, if a woman thinks that she can do it, and she feels that God has given her the direction to do it, has a time, has maybe resources to get started, then I'm no one to say you shouldn't, by no means. But really make sure that, you know, that you are planning accordingly, and I'll give you in a minute, planning accordingly, sister, because what happens is a lot of times people have gotten in tough situations where now they don't know what to do. How do I finish it? I started it, I can't get no help. You know, when you're going to plan something, here's some of the things that I was talking about with one of the brothers, is if you're going to plan to build something in the country, plan it, number one, plan it in phases. Okay, what is going to be my first phase? How much do I have, and how much help can I get for a work fee? I mean, let's say I want to do a 2-week work fee. I want to plan it in 2 months from now. You let other like-minded people know that are willing to help, that have skill, ability, and volunteers. You plan that with a budget. You plan the first phase, and you bring people together. You have people that are going to be cooking, cleaning, building, etc., because you want to accomplish to reach that goal in that stage. Your first phase. Kind of like what Brother George was showing you on the screen. First phase was we got the slab in. Then they got the walls up. Then the next phase was to get the second floor up with the roof on. And so you have to build in stages sometimes. You see what I'm saying? And so, but you have to plan accordingly, you know? And so don't, you know, like it says in Luke, don't plan to do something and then you don't have enough to finish it, and others will come and mock you for it, you know? Jesus planned, right, to come and save humanity. He knew that he could finish the job. So we have to do the same thing. We have to plan accordingly and plan in the stages so that we know we're going to be able to achieve, you know, that stage. I don't know if that helps you a little bit. Okay.
So I was just going to comment on that. She hit me, but I won't say what you said. The idea here is it's not about if you're a woman or a man. It's about a skill level, skill and strength. I mean, there are many women that can do this job because they have the skill, the strength, and they have the training. So if there's anybody in, especially in this area here, you have many people that will help. I mean, you look at Shay, you look at Ernie, you look at Chilo, you look at myself. I mean, Larry. We have a lot of people out here that were willing to help. And if we can't do it, we can show you how to do it. And if it's really dangerous, then we'll come out and help you. But that's one of the things you need, is you have to have a community, and that's what he's talking about. When you're looking in phases, you know, what's really important is just having that community of people that have skill to come together in a Christ-like manner and help one another. And that's the whole idea that he's talking about and that we're all kind of touching on. George does the same thing. I mean, look at Ernie's garden. Ernie didn't do that by himself. We all did that. Christ did that. Christ-like minded people came together to help. It's the same way even here in, you know, doing the building and phases, exactly like the brother said. And I don't mean to stand up here.
No. Thank you for reaffirming that. That's the whole idea. Our mentality has to change, brothers and sisters. I have seen over and over, you know, that, you know, who's first? I'm first. I got to get mine done first. That's not true giving. Giving is when you cannot go, when you have all kinds of gardens to do, and you're called to go serve. That's giving. You got a lot to do, but you're still willing to give. You give that's giving, brothers and sisters. So I'm not saying that maybe everybody's not going to get to that point immediately, but the Lord somehow, some way recompenses us. The blessings come in different forms and in different ways. I don't do this because there's money involved. I don't do this because I want to be recognized. I don't have no intentions. My sole purpose, and I explained it to my son, is because we want to serve the Lord. That's the number one reason. Number two, we want to help our brethren. We don't want to say like it's women, men, color, race. It doesn't matter to me. I'm here to help those that are Christ-like minded, and we want to help each other. We need, I believe that Jesus is going to see the unity that he prayed for in John 17 before he returns. We will come together, or we will press together. You remember that in Adventist home, Sister White says that the family is, imagine the circle, that every member, Jesus is at the center of the circle, and as each one draws closer to Jesus, what happens to each other? They draw closer together. That's what's going to happen to God's people in the last days, brothers and sisters. If I am blessed, I need to bless others. I've talked with people sometimes that they hide what they have and they want to see what they can get from the help and then save their money. That's very dangerous, brothers and sisters. That happened in Acts. And what happened to those people? They both died. Yeah. So we don't want to play with this. The Lord is serious about unity, and he wants us to come together. So if we want to build a house, and somebody said, and I'm not saying that the only way to get to the country is building a house. Sometimes you don't even have to own the land. You might have to rent the land. Has any of you, have you ever seen the testimonies of Urban Danger? You saw that the video? It's called Urban Danger. You can still see it on YouTube. It's like 5 or 6 different testimonies of Adventists that have moved to the country. Some of them were moved from New York with no money into the country. So when we have no answer to our problem, you know what? God has 1,000 ways that he can solve that. Yes, Brother Mo.
Urban Danger. Did you guys see that horse towards the middle or towards the end?
Yes.
That was at our house. That was our horse.
Really? Oh, wow. Praise the Lord.
We were very new to the Adventist faith, so we say God you never saw us on the video. So that was our barn that you saw.
Really?
That was our horse.
Before I moved to the country, Brother Mo, I must have watched that video about 5 times before I moved to the country. I could just taste it. I really wanted to go to the country, and I had no idea how to do it, And by God's grace, nobody has to know everything, because nobody has all their T's crossed, brothers and sisters. It's not about us having all our T's crossed. The ark was not built because Noah was a craftsman of ship making. He wasn't. God put it together. He was the designer, and in the storm, who held it together? You all know. It was the angels that God sent that held it together. Country living is going to come together only because God holds it together. All right, brothers and sisters, let us finish. Yes, one last question.
So what's the difference between a small handsaw and a big handsaw? And what is better? Because I used to have that big handsaw and it seems like it's so dark.
It's not cutting. It needs to be sharpened. And there's nothing wrong with old, longer handsaws. They just need to be sharpened.
So the small one is better?
I find it more practical. I'm not saying that it's better for what I do. It's practical when I got to get up somewhere and cut something. Those old hand saws, the longer ones the sister's asking.
Yeah, it will just...
Nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. But, just with time, things, develop and they get, more practical in certain areas. Somebody one time.
Because my strength is
Okay. Well, I'll give you an opportunity tomorrow to try these. Is that fair enough? Okay. All right. But let us finish with a word of prayer. Those that can kneel can join me. Father in heaven, we're so thankful, Lord, that you love us so much. You're so patient. You want to teach us, Lord. But you don't just want to teach us, Lord, a new skill. You want to teach us to reflect your Son Jesus in everything that we do. Lord, we want to grow. We want to continue to learn. Eternity will be like that, learning and growing in knowledge and wisdom. And Lord, we just want to continue this right now so that one day, Lord, we can do it with our master teacher, Jesus Christ. Bless everyone here. Be with each family, each child, each adult, everyone that is planning, Lord, to continue, Lord, on this journey. Be with them in a special way. Be with this camp meeting, Lord. Be with brother and sister Ernie and sister Kim, Lord. Continue to bless them, Lord, as they have blessed us. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.